Hey guys, welcome to another MapleStory 2 video, and this one's going to be another discussion-based one, so feel free to treat this as a radio podcast or something, and if you want to minimize the video, you can. And of course, if you want to participate in the discussion, you're more than welcome to in the comment section below, as long as you're friendly about it, and make sure that your opinion is constructive. I understand controversial topics would spur rather heated arguments, but remember, everyone has different perspectives and experiences on the subject. Speaking of said subject, I want to talk about the difficulty of Chaos Raids and whether or not it's justified, and overall just my thoughts on the execution of the Chaos Rising update since it's been about a week since it came out. And as usual, I like to tell you guys my answer at the very beginning and then explain my way through it so you get an idea for why I take a stance on things. Which is ironic to say because I almost never take a stance, but not because I'm a fence sitter, rather because I understand there's an entire spectrum of circumstances and also just reception. For instance, a casual player sees things differently from a hardcore player, an experienced player sees things differently from a beginner player, a wizard main might see things differently from a knight main. It's all relative, it's all subjective. So taking a side would imply a certain level of bias, and in discussion videos like these, while I do have some semblance of partiality, I like to look at both sides of the story. As for my answer, it's no. I don't believe the Chaos Raids are too difficult. I think the Chaos Raids as they are should stay the way they are because of their difficulty being appropriate. However, given our means of preparation along with our available tools and resources for clearing Chaos Raids, I can definitely understand why people are frustrated with the apparent difficulty. I want to start with the side that argues Chaos Raids being too difficult and what the general community thinks first, and then I'll defend my choice later. Right now, there's a lot of resentment towards Nexon about how we were, for a lack of a better word, baited by them. When Chaos Raids were announced as 10-man parties with a time limit, everyone knew there would be some challenge to these bosses, compounded by the fact that we were told the gear score requirements to enter these dungeons: 4500, 5900, and 7800. Chaos Moonlight Fortress and Chaos Clock Tower have a pretty solid gear score requirement, which led us to believe, okay, those might be somewhat challenging to take on since the average gear score most players are at right now are in the low 4000s. But Chaos Shadow Altar's 4500 doesn't look so bad, which made people assume that the gear score requirement was a recommended amount of gear score to have to be able to defeat the boss. But that's not true, those gear score values are the minimum level required to defeat the boss. So that pissed off a lot of players because they thought that they were finally able to take these bosses on only to realize they need seemingly a lot more resources. Normally that wouldn't be a problem because mechanics, team composition, and synergy along with getting used to the boss's attack patterns would certainly be the reason why you would have to have just a little bit more. But the issue lies in how we can get stronger. Despite MS2 not being as heavily RNG as MS1, since, for example, the enhancement system provides some form of compensation for failing your enhances, it's still a very RNG based game. To upgrade your equipment past plus 10, you have to have duplicate copies of an item as sacrifices for enhancing. Nothing out of the ordinary, you see stuff like that all the time in other MMOs. But when the method of obtaining duplicate weapons involves doing 60 dungeons a week with an average time of 8 minutes per run, meaning you have to spend like 6 to 8 hours a week doing dungeons, plus the fact that those drops aren't guaranteed, they're random, you can get drops that aren't even belonging to your class, along with the point of very low pass rates make reaching higher levels of damage to be very tedious. Even worse is that you have a limit to how strong you can get each week. Dungeons right now have a weekly limit of 60, so as not to have the power creep go out of control, since I'm sure some dedicated players wouldn't think twice about doing like 200 fire dragons a week or even more, just to get ahead of the group. But when you place a limit on how strong you can get, the adversity that you face needs to accommodate for that. Chaos Shadow Altar at the moment places a tenuous gear limit of your weapon being at least plus 14 or even plus 15. In fact, most serious clear parties require plus 15 at bare minimum. Getting plus 15 is possible, yes, but it takes time, unless you're seriously lucky. Factoring in that RNG aspect to upgrading means that some lucky players will be able to breeze through things while others are gated by simple drop limitations. If we put it into a hypothetical, say there are two players, both with plus 14 weapons, and say that the only way to beat Dvorak is to have a plus 15 weapon. Obviously you don't, but like I said, it's a hypothetical. Say these players are at equal strength, but one of them gets lucky and upgrades their weapon to plus 15. The plus 15 player will not be able to defeat Dvorak and become exponentially stronger, while the plus 14 player is stuck for an entire week, not being able to make any progress due to just simply being unlucky. And while that's happening, the plus 15 player is getting even stronger by taking out Dvorak and getting the legendary drops, then going over to Chaos Moonlight Fortress, and it just creates a snowball effect. While the plus 14 player is just still stuck trying to even be able to take down Dvorak. Putting a time gate on MMORPGs is very dangerous since you can cause huge fractures and rifts between player bases, which fosters an environment of hatred between the strong and the weak, the rich and the poor, the lucky and the unlucky. Players are frustrated because Chaos Raids have placed this illusionary arms race where everyone has to just get as strong as they possibly can. And not only are the options of getting stronger extremely monotonous and boring, but some people physically cannot get stronger just due to sheer bad luck and RNG. Also, because of the skill floor and power floor that Chaos Raids imposed on us and what we have to work with, only like the top 3% of the player base is even able to do these bosses. because all we have to work with are epic equips that need good stats and a plus 15 weapon. There's very little leeway for us players to defeat these bosses. Even if you're experienced, you have to have near best in slot gear with good stats to comfortably take down Chaos Shadow Altar. I can't even imagine how difficult Chaos Moonlight Fortress is. Actually, some people are even complaining that that boss is pay to win for some reason. Another aspect of the problem with Chaos Raids is the lack of information Nexon provided to us when it comes to knowing what you need to defeat these bosses. Gear score alone is a very vague number since all it shows is a rating of your character's items, not the stats. Of course, yes, gear score matters in a general sense, but it fails to take into consideration bonus attributes, gemstones, and the like. Stats like accuracy, piercing, critical damage, elemental damage, boss damage, etc. They're super important to increasing your character's strength, but none of that was ever hinted to us at all by the company. The community has been working on spreading information out to as many players as possible, but by then so many players have been led down the wrong path. You would see a 75-100 attack player and go, wow, this person's super strong, let's get them into our party. But then that player would be doing absolutely no damage, and then you would realize they had no boss damage, no piercing, nothing extra, just flat attack. And then that person would be kicked and flamed for being a bad player, but they're not bad, they're just misinformed. Naturally, players should be exercising due diligence and try to learn as much about the game as they can to optimize their progression and prevent mistakes. But some players have better access to this information, and even with that information, a lot of players don't know what to do with it. Only organized communities and guilds can obtain and spread intel, and it creates this elitism between the informed and the uninformed. Recently, there was a lot of controversy about the 10-man DPS chart, and honestly, I don't like it. While it's important to know how much damage you're doing since Chaos Raids are timed and therefore you have to contribute a baseline level of damage as the DPSer to earn your spot in the party, it's been festering into a sheer toxicity among players. I know when being objective you shouldn't bring any anecdotal things because that creates bias, but I want to talk to you guys about something I ran into a couple days ago. A wizard joined our Chaos Raid and we were intent on getting it cleared. This wizard was decently strong with a plus 15 weapon, but rather bad bonus attributes. I didn't want to say anything because wizards are really strong, so maybe they can still keep up. Unfortunately, this player wasn't able to carry their weight and was flamed at for not knowing the mechanics of the boss fight. The wizard rightfully defended themselves by saying they were new to Chaos Dvorak. Understandable, this raid's only been out for a week. And then the party leader yelled at him for trying to join a clearing party with no experience, and then the wizard responded by saying no one would let them join a party because they didn't have any experience. And before you stop me, I know what you're gonna say, that there are practice parties that people are making, like public practice parties, but even so, those parties still have like some desire to want to clear the boss. That sounds a lot like the catch-22. To get a job, you need experience, but to get experience, you need a job, which means you can't get either. It's a very bad environment for players who don't have good connections or resources. I myself actually had pretty incorrectly prepared equipment, but since I had my guild and other friends to talk to, I was able to fix my assassin up, and now I'm doing pretty well in Chaos Raids. But some people just aren't that well off, and they're being alienated for it, which creates a lot of hostility because we as players should be looking out for the little guys. That's the whole reason I make YouTube videos actually, to spread information out so players who struggle to find what to do next can have access to my videos in a structured and understandable format. Okay, so that's what's going on right now and why Chaos Raids are really controversial, but now I'll move into the video's central question: are they too difficult? Absolutely not, they're fine. There's nothing wrong with the Chaos Raids themselves. Despite me saying earlier that their difficulty and our resources are in kind of an unfair spot, Chaos Raids are easily doable. You have to understand, Chaos Raids are not meant to be easy. For those of you who played MapleStory 1, by the time Chaos Zakuma and Chaos Horntail were released, players were easily able to take down their normal counterparts without too much difficulty. But when Chaos bosses came out, they were like unkillable. You needed full 30-man parties to take them down. It took a long time before those bosses became beatable by the general public. Chaos Zakuma was more than 10 times harder than normal Zakuma. The same applies for MS2's Chaos Raids. These dungeons require much more than what players are used to. In Fire Dragon, Lubelisk, Beyond Link Triss, Balrog Temple, you can go in without any team composition and just AFK your way to victory without a care in the world for the boss. But Chaos Raids are not like that. You need proper team composition, good knowledge of the boss's attacks and patterns, synergy between players, and you actually have to pay attention. I joined a lot of public Chaos Raid parties and evaluated the party's strength, and a good 90% of them were strong enough to take down Dvorak. Of that 90%, you know how many of them failed? All of them. Stats alone are not enough. These raids take skill and practice. You have to do them like at least 10 or 20 times before you even begin to take them down normally. So many players come in with kick-ass gear but die so many times because they don't have enough experience in dealing with the boss. You see top level players who destroy these bosses in like 5 to 8 minutes and think these guys must have really strong equipment, but not even actually. A lot of them have gear that's about the same as ours, or maybe just a little bit better. But a little better doesn't enable them to kill bosses in half the time. It's mechanics, it's fluidity, it's control. Players are expecting to take out Chaos Dvorak like it's the next Fire Dragon in the first week it comes out. Come on guys, be realistic, that's not gonna happen. There's a reason why these raids are a tier above hard dungeons, is because they're very hard. Equipment is the bare minimum. You need to build up your knowledge of the boss's attack patterns. When, how, and where you can increase your DPS uptime, what shortcuts you can take to minimize death or delay in attacks, and also what things you should be aware of. Any big attacks you gotta watch out for. A lot of players come in with stacked equips and over 8,000 attack and think they can just breeze through these dungeons, but remember guys, it's not the wand, it's the wizard. It's not the sword, it's the swordsman. It's not the knife, it's the cook. It's one of the most simple examples of a David and Goliath situation. You can have all the power in the world, but if you don't know how to use it, of course you're gonna lose. These raids will take time. In fact, I imagine it could take months before chaos raids become easily defeatable by the general player base. But you should focus more on learning, not about clearing. Once you learn how to defeat the boss, clearing will come, and there's sweet drops that come with it. I hope you guys got a little something out of this, and just remember, it's not like these bosses will be here only for a few days, they'll be here forever, so take as much time as you need to progress through the game. It's all well and good to be competitive and to want to get stronger every day, but at the same time, lest we forget, this is an MMORPG. MMOs are slow games, unlike the fast-paced and instant gratification meta we're in right now for video games where PUBG, Overwatch, Fortnite, and League of Legends run the show. MMOs are games that require time, sometimes money, but most importantly, patience. Do you think those people who clear these bosses in like 5 to 10 minutes did it on their first try? No, they've been playing the game for years. Those players have been playing KMS2 or CMS2 before they even came to GMS2. I had to do Chaos Dvorak a good 15 times before I was even able to get my first finish. Of course, it sucked failing over and over again, but that made the first clear feel all the better. Chaos raids are a great challenge given to us. To many, it feels like an unfair and overly difficult obstacle, and of course they would feel that way. People fear what they don't understand. Right now, Chaos Raids will look like an impossible goal, but who knows, in just a couple of weeks it could become the next boring fire dragon that we just have to grind over and over to upgrade our gear. That being said, there's a lot of things Nexon does have to do to fix up this issue, and they have. Be patient guys, this is a good game. There's a lot of stuff wrong with it, but that can all be fixed. Give the developers time, and more importantly, give yourself time. It's not something that will happen overnight, and that's a good thing. If you could beat every new content that the game releases in a single day, MapleStory 2 will get very boring. There's a lot for you to do, but just enjoy the ride. Thanks again so much for watching if you made it all the way, and if you guys want to express your thoughts in the comment section below, feel free to, but know that any form of hostility or toxicity will be deleted and you will be blocked. I very much do not like drama, nor all the crap that this community is giving to the game. I'm not a Nexon sympathizer, I do have my own grievances, but I know that no one is perfect, not even you, not even me. But yeah, I'll see you guys again in the next video. Take care.